The volunteers turned out to be Fawn, an extremely pretty blonde girl in a motorized wheelchair, and Sid, a guy with a blue mohawk and a ring in his nose. Very Californian, Kate thought approvingly. Marisol took him into the back lab. Joyce gestured at Kate to sit down on a couch over by the window. "You'll be working with Fawn, but you'll have to share her with Rob," she said. "And I think we'll let him go first, so just relax." Caitlin didn't mind. She was both excited and nervous about her own testing. What if she couldn't perform? She'd never been able to use her power on cue, except at Joyce's vision screening, and then she hadn't known she was using her power. "Now, Rob," Joyce said. She had attached a blood pressure gauge to one of Fawn's fingers. We'll have 6 trials of 5 minutes each. What I'm going to ask you to do is to pull a slip of paper out of this box. If the slip says raise, I want you to try to raise Fawn's blood pressure. If it says lower, I want you to try to lower it. If it says no change, I want you to do nothing. Understand?" Rob looked from Fawn to Joyce, his brow wrinkled. "Yes, ma'am, but call me Joyce, Rob. I'll be charting the results. In each case, don't tell anyone what the slip says. Just do it." Joyce checked her watch, then nodded at the box. "Go ahead, pick." Rob started to reach in the box, but then he dropped his hand. He knelt in front of the blonde girl's wheelchair. "Your legs give you much trouble?" Fawn looked at Joyce quickly, then back at Rob. "I have MS, multiple sclerosis. I got it early. Sometimes I can walk, but it's pretty bad right now." "Rob," Joyce said. Rob didn't seem to hear her. "Can you lift this foot here?" "Not very high." The leg lifted slightly, fell. "Rob," Joyce said, "nobody expects you to. We can't measure this kind of thing." "Excuse me, ma'am," Rob said softly, without looking around, to Fawn. "How about this one? Can you lift it some?" "Not as high as the other." The foot lifted and fell. "That's just fine. Okay, now, you just hold still. You may feel some heat or some cold, but don't you worry about that." Rob reached forward to clasp the girl's bare ankle. Joyce tilted her sleek blonde head to look at the ceiling, then sighed and went to sit beside Caitlin. "I suppose I should have known," she said, letting her hands with the watch and notebook fall on either side of her. Caitlin was watching Rob. His head was turned toward her, but he clearly wasn't seeing her. He seemed to be listening for something as his fingers moved nimbly over Fawn's ankle, as if looking at the ankle would only distract him. Caitlin was fascinated by his face. Whatever she thought of boys in general, her artist's eyes couldn't prevaricate. Words from a book she once read ran through her mind. A beautiful, honest face, with the eyes of a dreamer. "And the stubborn jaw of a fighter," she added to herself, with an amused sideways glance at Joyce. "How does that feel?" Rob asked Fawn. Sort of tingly," she said, with a breathless, nervous laugh. "Oh!" "Try to lift this foot again." Fawn's sneaker came up, almost 10 inches off the footrest. "I did that!" she gasped. "No, you did that!" She was staring at him with huge eyes filled with wonder. "You did it," Rob said, and smiled. He was breathing quickly. "Now, we'll work on the other one." Caitlin felt a stab of jealousy. She'd never felt anything quite like it before. It was similar to the ache she'd gotten back in Ohio when she'd heard Marcy Huang planning parties. Just now, the way Rob was concentrating on Fawn, the way Fawn was looking at Rob. Joyce chuckled. "Same thing I saw at his school," she said to Kate in a low voice. "Every girl swooning when he goes by, and him not even knowing what's going on. That boy has no idea he's so sexy." "That's it," Kate realized. "He has no clue." "But why doesn't he?" she blurted. "Probably because of the same thing that gave him his accident." "His talent," Joyce said. "The accident." "What accident?" "He didn't mention it?" "I'm sure he'll tell you all about it if you ask. He was hang gliding and crashed. Broke most of his bones and ended up in a coma." "Oh, my God," Caitlin said softly. They didn't expect him to live, but he did. When he woke up, he had his powers, but he also had some deficits, like not knowing what girls are for. Caitlin stared at her. "You're kidding." "Nope," Joyce grinned. "He's pretty innocent about the world, in a lot of ways. He just doesn't see things quite the way other people do." Caitlin shut her eyes. Of course that explained why Rob casually reached up girls' skirts. It explained everything, except why just looking at him made her heart pound, and why just the thought of him lying in a coma hurt her, and why she had a very uncharitable desire to run over and physically drag him away from the pretty fawn right now. "There's a word for your condition," her mind told her snidely. "It's called shut up," Caitlin thought, but it was no use. She knew. "That's enough for now," Rob was saying to Fawn. He sat back on his heels and wiped his forehead. "If we kept working on it every week, I think I could maybe help more. Do you want to do that?" All Fawn said was yes, but it was the way she said it, and the melty, awed way she looked into Rob's eyes, Kate thought. Fortunately, at that moment, Joyce stood up. "Rob, you might talk to me about arranging that," she said. He turned and looked at her mildly. "I knew you'd want me to," he said. Joyce muttered something under her breath. Then she said, "Right, we'll work something out. Why don't you take a break now, Rob? And Fawn, if you're too tired for another experiment." "No, I feel great," Fawn said, not sappily but buoyantly. "I feel so strong, ready for anything." "Energy transfer," Joyce murmured, taking off the blood pressure cuff. "We'll have to explore that." Then she looked up as the door connecting the front and back labs opened. "What is it, Marisol?" "He's not cooperating," Marisol said. Gabriel was right behind her. He looked particularly gorgeous and somehow elegant, but his expression was one of cold contempt. "Why not?" Joyce asked. "You know why," Gabriel said. He seemed to sense Kate's eyes on him, and he gave her a long, deadly look. Joyce put her hand to her forehead. "Right, let's go talk about it." Rob reached out and caught her arm. "Ma'am, Joyce, I don't know if that's such a good idea. You want to be careful." "I'll handle this, Rob, please," Joyce said in a voice that indicated she'd had enough. She went into the back lab, taking Marisol and Gabriel with her. The door shut. Anna and Lewis were looking up from their study carrels. Even Fawn was staring. Caitlin braced herself to look at Rob this close. "What do you mean by that?" she said, her voice as casual as she could make it. His gaze seemed to be turned inward. "I don't know, but I remember what happened at the centre in Durham. They tried to make him do experiments too." He shook his head. "I'll see you later," he said softly, and left. Caitlin was pleased that he didn't turn to look back at Fawn, and displeased that he didn't turn to look back at her. A few minutes later, Joyce returned, looking slightly frazzled. "Now, where were we? Caitlin, it's your turn." "Oh, not now," Caitlin thought. She felt raw and throbbing from her new discoveries about Rob, as if she'd had a layer of skin stripped off. She wanted to go off by herself somewhere and think. Joyce was thumbing through a folder distractedly. "Informal. We'll keep this informal," she murmured. "Caitlin, I want you to sit down here." She guided Caitlin behind the folding screen, where there was a plush reclining chair. "In a moment I'm going to have you put on these headphones and this blindfold." It was a weird-looking blindfold, like goggles made of the two halves of a tennis ball. "What's that?" "Poor man's version of a Gansfeld cocoon. I'm trying to get the money to set up a proper Gansfeld room, with red lights and stereo sound and stuff." "Red lights? They help induce relaxation, but never mind. The point of Gansfeld testing is to cut off your ordinary senses, so you can concentrate on the psychic ones. You can't see anything with the blindfold. You can't hear anything because the headphones fill your ears with white noise. It's supposed to help you be receptive to any images that come into your head.